when someone's looking to relocate here, the first thing, in my opinion, they do is they drive downtown and see if they consider themselves moving here and relocating their families here. So the first impressions, whether it be from flying in on Bluegrass Airport and looking at those beautiful farms, to driving downtown and seeing Gatton Park, seeing the buildings, it all plays an important role. You got to go promote local businesses. You got to stop in. You got to say hi. You got to know who your neighbors are. And I just always fell in love with that. I think it's the most important project we've seen, located on the creek that our city was founded on, and totally transforming it into a world-class park. Something that I find really interesting and that we're really proud of is you can reach 389 destinations globally with one stop. And for an airport our size, that's pretty staggering.
What's the boldest prediction you have for Lexington?
I envision a lot of cranes. There's going to be a lot of cranes in the sky.
Today on MWM Talks, we are joined by Clay Angelucci, partner at Block & Lot Real Estate and a key player in Lexington's urban revitalization story. We talk about downtown momentum, the evolving office market, and what's next for the Bluegrass Airport. We also talk about how real estate is more than just buildings. Clay has seen the shifts up close. He's got strong takes and even better stories. Let's get into it.
All right, Clay Angelucci, the second official episode of MWM Talks. Thanks for joining us today, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had to drive across town, even though I could have walked next door to see you, but
let's make things difficult when we don't have to, right? That's
absolutely
the story of our industry. All right, well, listen, so let's talk a little real estate today. Let's talk a little downtown real estate, Lexington Airport board that you're involved in. Before we dive into all of that, how about you give us the Clay Angelucci origin story and how you got into the business?
Yeah, absolutely. I was born and raised here, and I feel like my whole life I was coming downtown. My father was involved in real estate, and I feel like he practiced downtown his whole career, and he started building a building the year that I was born. I think he finished it almost the year after I was born. It took him 7 years to fill this property, but so my whole life was growing up was going there and sweeping the floor plans, making sure it was clean, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world to go to the roof. One of the things that I loved most was my dad would take me downtown, and he made it clear, you got to go promote local businesses. You got to stop in. You got to say hi. You got to just know who your neighbors are. And I just always fell in love with that. I thought it was great to know everyone that's in your urban core and stop in and just say hello. You can support businesses. And I love that about my dad, and it made me fall in love with downtown.
That's funny, man. I've known you for a long time. I've never known that story. And you've been in real estate business for 10 plus years now, right? And you've become here in Lexington, one of the more well-known downtown real estate brokers in the city. But it's funny how your background, whether you know it or not, plays a role into what you end up doing for the rest of your life. I mean, now that I hear that, it makes sense why you love downtown so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the same for you too, right? I'm sure you were downtown. You've seen it grow.
Yeah.
It's been really exciting to be a part of it all.
So you all started Block & Lot Real Estate how long ago now?
We're 13 years old.
Yeah.
See, we started in 2013. We just came up on our 10 years. So maybe it's about 11 or 12 years, but it feels like a long time, and it's been incredible.
Well, we've had the opportunity now to be affiliated in that kind of grind with you guys for, I guess, 5 years now. Since we've been working together, it's been obvious your love for downtown, like I said. So talk to us a little bit about that. Lexington as a city, what do you think we have going for us in downtown Lexington? Or what are some things that maybe we could work on?
I love that question, and we'll constantly be scratching our heads about it. But I feel like we've got everything going for us. Surrounded by beautiful horse farms. We are a college city. We've now got the Bourbon Trail, and I feel like our urban core is thriving. There's some things to improve upon, but I really feel like we check so many boxes, it's laughable. I think that downtown's been growing organically and responsibly, but I think there's a lot of ways that we can improve upon what makes Lexington so great and just attract businesses to move here and attract people to live downtown.
Yeah. So if you look at the cities across the country that tend to do really, really well, I think they have a couple of things going for them. And one of the main ones is a university town, right? And I think we've been really fortunate with the University of Kentucky and the growth that it's had over the last, I guess, 10 plus years. I swear I graduated in 2014 and I drive by campus all the time. Obviously it looks totally different. And I think from a real estate perspective, we've gotten to really benefit from that. Right.
Yeah. My wife went to UK and I swear she almost feels like the campus is unrecognizable.
So in terms of, I would consider you an expert at downtown. You've probably had pluses and minuses in terms of trying to work deals in downtown. What's maybe been the toughest barrier on deals that you've run into frequently when you've had challenges in working downtown projects?
I think it's finding a balance because we don't have much inventory. We really have to focus on building up. And I think it's a really difficult balance with building as high as you can economically and providing parking. And
Yeah.
I think it just gets really expensive. Construction costs are through the roof right now. And so to acquire land and to work with your local municipalities, planning and zoning, and finding the right balance of parking, it's really a challenge.
I know City Center probably took a little longer than what everybody wanted, but here we are in 2025. That project, outside looking in, I would say has done relatively well for a tough market for office, right? And then, one of our colleagues, Peter Barr, is part of another downtown project right now, which is a big investment. So I think it's interesting to think that so many downtowns across the country, maybe 2-3 years ago, were really, really struggling. Some are still as well. I think Lexington has some really good stuff going on as it relates to those two projects and the Town Branch project that you are affiliated with. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I to go back to what you said just about other communities, I feel like my interests have matured. When we're back in college, we see how there's so much potential downtown with creative use of space for bars and restaurants. And then as you mature in the business, you really start thinking about economic development. And then you start thinking about promoting companies to relocate here in downtown. And then you hope you have the space. And then you start thinking about, we need more people to live here. So we need to start thinking about these buildings and how can we adapt them into residential and do a blend of mixed use. And I really feel like you're starting to see it. The project that you mentioned, 325 West Main Street, the developer, Katie Kaufman, in a partnership with Matthew, she's really taken this building and providing what I feel like has been a good transition of office space. I think kind of the creative edge that she's taken towards that development is it's more hospitality driven. There's more amenities, making it more exciting to go to work. It's going to have a real homey feel, and it's a perfect mix of retail and office. So I really like what they're doing there.
Well, so to that point, right, I think that speaks to what's making some of these projects that seem like risky, big investments succeed, even in a tough office market. Between that project that you just mentioned, the Commons just right outside of downtown Lexington that Amy and I have gotten to work on with the developer Darren Turner, those are big investments, but are doing well in attracting office tenants, right? And it sounds cliche in terms of like central business district and amenities and things like that, but they are literally working. The spaces that we've had available in those types of developments have leased, and they've leased at a pretty fast clip, I would argue.
You're right. COVID, we really saw people kind of scramble to the suburban office market because of the ease of parking, because of the ease of management. And now that people are starting to return to work, people want to be energized where they work. COVID taught them that, hey, we kind of like this blend of being at home and have the relaxation of our backyard or being able to travel. And now that they're coming back to the office, you have to provide something for the employer that makes them want to come to work and be energized. And I love what we're seeing in some of these projects.
Well, yeah. So, and I think, again, with any downtown, a lot of the challenges, to your point of why people moved out maybe during COVID, was parking related, right? I think most downtowns struggle with that. But you reference at least a couple of projects that we've referenced just now, the 325 Main Street project. It does have access to parking, right? Yep. The Commons project, it does have access to parking, but you're still downtown in your walkability. So I don't know. I think, again, Lexington is a really interesting market, which makes me want to talk a little bit further about it. All these other areas in really big cities, you still for the most part, see just awful headlines about office markets. What do you think the office market in Lexington is compared to the national market? Because I have an opinion on that as well.
I think that it's improving. COVID hurt the downtown office vacancy rate pretty bad, but I see it improving. I think we're going to see more people focus on downtown because some of those amenities are starting to pop up. You mentioned Gatton Park, also known as Lexington's Living Room. That's a pretty important amenity that's going to be downtown that we've been lacking for forever. We might hopefully get a grocery downtown. That would be wonderful. There's more green space, making things better with walkability, well lit, I really think can really add to the downtown office landscape.
Talk a little bit about the Gatton project, Clay. You've played a big role in that. And for a city like Lexington that is of decent size, 300 plus thousand people, but it's not the biggest city in the world.
Yeah.
That's a big investment for people to put their literal heart, soul, and money into. Talk about how important that project is for Lexington.
I think it's the most important project we've seen, and some of the founding members on the board and the director, Allison Langford and Ben Schaffer, have just done an outstanding job getting private investors in this project, which really shows that the community cares. And we're taking a parking lot that is located on the creek, as I call it, or the creek that our city was founded on, and totally transforming it into a world-class park. The engineering firm Suzaki that worked on that project is world-renowned. They did such a thoughtful job making this thing feel uniquely Lexington. And I think people will see how well it connects downtown to what I consider one of our true entertainment districts, which is the Distillery District. It's kind of like plants a flag as, here's our downtown, everything's connected. We're going to bring in the University of Kentucky. We're going to bring in all neighborhoods. I couldn't be more excited about that project. And not to mention the amphitheater, which I feel like is going to blow people's minds. It's probably bigger than what people expected. And it's hard to pull off a project that is an amphitheater and a public park. And I feel like that's what we've got. It's great.
It's already blown my mind in the sense of, again, a guy who lives in Lexington and I work downtown. You're just busy running and gunning and not paying attention every single day to the development. I drove by the other day. I'm already blown away by what I see there. And I think, to your point, really good point in terms of planting the flag in that entertainment district and all the different types of events that we're going to be able to bring, and then the trickle effect that's going to have on so many of the businesses that either benefit from the walkability of people, and then also, to your point, the people who are working and living downtown. I couldn't agree more. The impact that it's going to have, in addition to what you already have down Manchester, the comments that we've already mentioned, that whole area, I think, is just ripe for just a world of opportunity over the next 5 years.
I think I saw somebody posted that Fayette County did $1.7 billion in economic impact.
Yeah.
Shout out to Visit Lex there. But with that expanded convention center and with all of the attractions that Lexington's offering people, it is ripe to just explode, I feel.
Yeah, I think Lexington is quite literally officially on the map. And let's talk a little bit more about that. Being an economic development guy myself, you serve on the Bluegrass Airport board, right? And, when I worked at the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development, I worked on one particular project that we ended up not winning, unfortunately, but it was a massive headquarter project. And one of the top 5 critical decision factors was flight patterns to and from their main hub, right? And we were having to negotiate with the airport, I won't say which one, but it was one of the big 3, about adding flights and what that looked like. It was such an interesting process to go through, but I really understand the benefit of an airport, and I would love to hear your perspective now being on that board for a little while, what you learned, and what maybe you could share some exciting things that could be coming from it.
Absolutely. I'm pretty humbled to be on that board. Our president and their staff are outstanding, and I feel like pound for pound, our airport punches above its weight, for its size. Something that I find really interesting and that we're really proud of is you can reach 389 destinations globally with one stop. And for an airport our size, that's pretty staggering to be able to connect to that many places. And so, if we want to show off Lexington and we want to create a good first impression, or people want to do business here, we have to make it accessible. And so new routes are very important to bringing people in. And they call it enplanements. Those numbers are up to almost pre-COVID levels. I think we had 1.3 approximate passengers the last fiscal year to this April that have come through, which is up 11% from last year. And you're just seeing people want to travel. And our airport it's not huge, and we are pretty constrained with land. And I feel like it's been growing organically to meet the demand and just the growing population.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question. We are a relatively small airport, right? Does that obviously it presents some challenges, but I was going to ask you stats that might surprise some Lexingtonians, and you've already mentioned, but the size of our airport, I mean, is that in some ways it's a good thing, right? Like, I know the airport's always on time, which, knock on wood, I love, right? But what are maybe constraints of the size of the airport that you guys are trying to work through right now?
We just added 815 long-term parking spaces, which there are so many cars. I mean, if you see the lot, if you're traveling now, we've got people parking in grass, and we know that's a need that needs to be met. In 2026, it'll be completed. And something that never gets mentioned is that they aren't making smaller aircraft anymore. So they're only producing large aircraft. And for an airport our size, we have to make sure we've got the runway space. And sometimes you need the runway space to be able to attract some of these longer distance connections. So there have been a lot of things in the works, capital improvement projects to equate for this demand and this growth. There's a new parking system that was just installed that makes it easier for passengers to go in and out of. And we're focused on a master plan right now, which is everything, expanding the terminal, possibly relocating the air traffic control tower. I mean, you name it. We have to do whatever we can within the land that we have, which is a pretty tough grade in general too. So it's a challenge, but the right leadership is in place right now, and they think 10 steps ahead.
Yeah. So, speaking of an economic engine and a direct impact, how much is Keeneland, especially during the meets, like how much more traffic do we traditionally see in April and October?
A lot. I mean, the horse sales too. So you're just seeing so much traffic produced from the horse industry.
Yeah. We're so thankful to have it. And it's, you drive by the airport on Keeneland meets, and that place is bustling in terms of the airport, right? Is what I mean, which makes me think of it. So last question on the airport, what's a major win that the airport is working towards right now, which would help us take like that next step from a quality and efficiency perspective?
All of the discussions with the master plan and adding more space to the terminal, and we just added a corporate hangar. We're doing all the things that will help for future demand and for growth. So I really feel like the leadership is on top of everything. And I thought of a statistic that you will like, considering you worked on that headquarters. Our little airport does, and this is based off of an economic impact study, does about $709 million economic output for the community. And that's capital improvement projects, that's general aviation, corporate aviation, on airport employment. That's a pretty staggering figure. That's annual economic output.
Well, that's a stat that I guarantee so many people that live here don't know. Again, just another example of a very fortunate economic engine that we're fortunate to have here in Lexington. So, all right, hey, back to downtown a little bit, Clay. I always like to ask people this question, like, what's a hidden gem downtown that maybe people don't know about? It could be a coffee shop, a public space, a building. What's a hidden gem in your mind?
I try to go to so many businesses downtown that they're all just pretty unique and special. But one thing I'll say that I love about downtown, I feel like doesn't get the appreciation as the St. Patty's Day parade. I think stopping into the Boucha, the Irish gift shop, going and getting a cup of coffee, walking around and experiencing our St. Patty's Day parade is wonderful. The Thriller Parade downtown is unbelievable. I love that. So it's really family friendly, and I feel like the programming downtown is excellent. I know that's not really a hidden gem, but in our block alone, where our block is alone, MWM block and lot, we've got so many businesses next to us. Lucy Brown Coffee Shop's probably a spot we go to religiously.
Well, I'm so thankful for the Big Blue Sandwich Shop that just opened up.
Oh yeah.
I crushed that place. What about what's a city in terms of downtown urban development, local, national, that is maybe an inspiration for downtown Lexington to model off of? Do you have one?
That's a really good question. I'm probably picking cities that have a bigger waterway than us, but
Sure.
Greenville, South Carolina really caught my eye when I was there. It just seems like a similar size, and just the way they've incorporated that waterway within their city is so amazing. And you look at Town Branch and how we're incorporating it into Gatton Park, and just be totally excited and in love with that.
I think Greenville is a great example, and
Mm,
especially in the economic development work that we do, a lot of folks are located in Greenville because of the reasons that you just said. In terms of it's similar to Lexington, right? It's not too big, it's not too small. It's pulling from South Carolina and Clemson universities. Like it's a very, I think even I could be wrong on this, but I think recently Commerce Lexington and the leadership group have taken a trip to Greenville. Every year they traveled. This year they went to Madison,
yeah,
Wisconsin, but I think they've gone to Greenville before for that reason. So I think it's actually a great example. So we've talked a little bit about economic development, and selfishly, I want to talk a little bit more about it. We've had the
yeah.
opportunity between MWM, Clay, and Block to work together now for a little bit. Tell me your perspective, being in brokerage for so long, and how do you think brokerage and economic development play together? Do they play well together, or do they not play well together?
I think they play very well together, and I think it's absolutely critical. I feel like having MWM affiliated with us is honestly taught me a lot, and it's proof that those sectors, whether it be the brokerage or site selection and economic development consulting, they require their own full-time team because it's that important. There's so much to consider when trying to make any of these things happen. So I've just really learned a lot, honestly, from MWM and being affiliated with them, and there's a lot more to learn. I'm just glad to see that there's that much consideration on your side for this.
Well, listen, I mean, I've learned so much more. And I just think, in terms of the benefit to so many communities when the brokerage world and the economic development world are actually working collaboratively together. I think if you look at a lot of the big cities that we mentioned, a lot of them do that, right? And,
Yeah,
you talk about some of the bigger companies like Newmark and Colliers and CBRE and JLL, they
yeah.
have all those pieces intertwined into one company. And I'm just so excited to be able to do that alongside you all. What do you think that, whether it's just us as NWM or Block and Lot or anybody in our industry, right? I think we're fortunate. The commercial real estate industry here in Lexington, it's a very small group, right? But I think we have a lot of really good players and firms. What can we do better for Lexington in this region to put us in a better position to be successful? I'm constantly thinking about that. What do you think we could do better?
Yeah, it's a tricky issue and one we all try to land. Getting a large company to relocate to the city that we love is a challenge. And knowing what's on the market and off the market and potential properties that could be made available to land these prospects in is extremely important. And sometimes you don't get those leads without communicating, collaborating with everyone in your industry. It is a group effort. When someone's looking to relocate here, the first thing, in my opinion, they do is they drive downtown and see if they consider themselves moving here and relocating their families here. So the first impressions, whether it be from flying in on Bluegrass Airport and looking at those beautiful farms to driving downtown and seeing Gatton Park, seeing the buildings, it all plays an important role. So I think just a lot more collaboration and staying in tune with the market and what's available is extremely important.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. When I was at the Cabinet for Economic Development in Frankfurt, I can point to several different cases when we were working with companies where maybe they started with 10 states and they were down to 3 or 4 states at that time. We were still in the mix, and their CEOs and executive leaders would, whatever community that we had in the mix on the project, they, without telling us, would come into town, drive around downtown, and just to get the feel of the community. In some cases, it played a really major role in the decision making process. And I do think we have that going for us, right? We've talked about the airport, we've talked about downtown Lexington. I do think we check those boxes, right? I think maybe
Absolutely.
what we're lacking, and it's easy for me to say I'm not spending the money, but in inventory to be able to recruit such a caliber company, we're probably lacking just a little bit.
I would agree.
Yeah. And, so if there's a developer out there that's willing to spec a 30,000 square foot headquarters in the heat of a down office market, we'd love to have you here in Lexington. All right. So as we maybe wrap some of this up, Clay, this should be more of a fun part of the conversation. What is your favorite Lexington lunch spot if you're going to go close a deal? I don't even know if I have one, but hopefully you can tell me one.
I think probably never closed the deal here, but just because I'm so busy, stuff in my face. But Buddha Lounge is a favorite of mine.
No, that's a good one. I DoorDashed from there last night, so that's a good one. What about the best coffee in downtown?
I go to most places, but if I'm going to have a meeting and collaborate, it's Manchester Coffee. If I'm going to
Yeah,
grab one out of convenience that's good, it's Lucy Brown. And I do like old school coffee too. So,
I love it. Yeah, no, I think from a meeting perspective, Manchester's perfect. Wide open,
uh,
great coffee, ton of meetings there, close to the office. What about favorite podcast? What are you listening to right now?
I'm not listening to anything right now, but I just grabbed a ridiculous book that's going to take me a year to finish. Um, Forgetting the name of it. I can actually see it over here. Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s.
Oh, smokes.
Yeah, I've burned out a lot of real estate podcasts, and now I just
Yeah.
kind of want to see something ridiculous.
All right, last one. What's the boldest prediction you have for Lexington by 2030 for the real estate market?
No, that's 5 years from now. That'll be here before you know it.
Yeah.
I envision a lot of cranes. There's going to be a lot of cranes in the sky. I think there's a lot of student housing developments that will be underway. A hospital will be doing something. So I foresee a lot of cranes, but a lot of great things are going to be opening or be opened by then. Phoenix Park, Gatton Park.
I'm glad you brought that up. That I want to touch on a little bit since I've gotten to experience it. UK Hospital is under a massive expansion at the moment, and I think that's another industry organization that us in the real estate market get to greatly benefit from. I don't want to get this wrong, but it's $1 billion+ expansion that they're undergoing right now, and it's I think an organization that downtown Lexington is also going to really benefit from.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, just driving down Limestone right now, I can't believe how massive of a building that they're constructing right there. But
well, Clay, any last closing thoughts, man? We really appreciate your time.
Last question for you is, how do you feel like Lexington's positioned to better evolve and recruit more businesses?
Well, listen, that's a tough question to answer. I think here's what I will say. It took us how long? 30 years to go through a urban service boundary expansion. Is that right?
Gosh, that's right.
Something like that. In my opinion, selfishly, right? I know that's really easy for me to say and not be in the people's seats that make those decisions. Those are hard decisions.
Yep.
I mean, we're part of a planning and zoning meeting in another community earlier this week. It's hard, right? People have a lot of opinions. You're never going to make everybody happy, I should say. I'm not looking to develop Calumet Farm, right? I'm not looking to develop Keeneland. What I'm looking to do is forward progress, because I am a believer in, if you're not moving forward, eventually you begin to move backwards. You might not right away, but if you're not moving forward, I think you do eventually move backwards. So I think we've taken the first step into what that looks like. And then, I think outside of just traditional real estate, the biggest problem that we have is Lexington is one of the toughest places in the city to buy a home right now. And, that could be, maybe something to be proud of. I don't know. If we want people to relocate here, that's probably not a great stat to have. So allowing for more community type residential developments will be part of our story in the future. And I hope that this expansion allows for that, because if that does happen, I can envision a really, really, in 2030, 2040, a beautiful city that's vibrant, and we haven't lost the charm that we have right now, which is just the beautiful bluegrass, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, well said.
We're short roughly 260,000 homes across the state right now. We're not going to make up for that in a year, 2 years, 3 years, but this big step that this US expansion is, I think, will help towards that. I think that's probably one of our biggest challenges is we want all these people to come here, but we're one of the hardest cities to buy a home in right now. So we got to fix that. Well, Clay, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. You're a busy guy. You do a lot of really good work. And yeah, man, we're thankful to be working alongside you every single day. So thanks again.
Thank you, guys.